Okay, welcome to Fusion 360, and this is our first tutorial in modeling the cutting board, or laminated project as we like to call it. And in this first tutorial we're simply going to try and model a single board. Future tutorials will make more boards and join them together, but here we go with our first one. On the screen, as I showed you in class, most likely, is the cutting board example that I have here. And yours will also be rectangular. However, you can make some modifications and we'll go over those later. So where do you begin? Well, you go up here once you're in Fusion, and you will have open Fusion and you'll probably be staring at a blank screen, but for myself I have to create a new design. So here I am where you are probably, and you have an untitled tab up here, and the first thing you want to do is save. And when you save, you want to give it a location. So you're saving to the cloud. So it's best to start a new project and give that new project a name. And so if I start one here, I could call this Maker 9. And then when I hit enter, it will add it to my project list. So down here somewhere I have Maker 9, and then I can save inside that project. So think of it as a top folder sort of thing, and we could call this cutting board tutorial and hit save. Okay, and up at the top here it will have changed to cutting board tutorial, and over here it changes to cutting board tutorial. This is the browser tree. We'll get into all these things as we go. I'm not going to explain everything. There's a lot in this program. Basically, you're just going to do as I do and follow along. And don't forget to pause and rewind if you miss something, because it goes pretty quick. Okay, so our goal is to model our first board. And our first board in Fusion, we will consider a component. If we head up to the browser tree and right-click, we make a new component. And on your screen, it's on my other screen, but there it is there, this will pop up, usually over here somewhere. And you're going to give it a name. You're going to call this board A and push OK. Then make sure board A has this little activate button selected, and it should, because sometimes it might be somewhere else like that. Board A's activate should be on, and that means we're drawing on board A when this button is selected at the end of the component. So now, head up to create, and you might have a shortcut here that says create sketch, or maybe you have to go under the drop down menu and grab create sketch. Either way, that's where we begin. We draw a two-dimensional sketch. It's like a piece of paper, and that's how this is going to work. We're going to draw two-dimensional sketches, and then we're going to do what they call extrude those into three-dimensional bodies. So when you click start a sketch, you have to pick something to sketch on. So because I have nothing drawn yet, the only thing I can sketch on are these, what they call planes. So these are planes that represent the three dimensions in space. We're going to click the plane that aligns with the top. This up here in the upper right corner is called the view cube. And this view cube, you can see, has different perspectives to look at it from: top, front, right. So if you want to actually rotate around so you're looking down from the top, if you click top, you'll see that now I'm looking down from above, and this is the plane that I want. And now I'll click on that plane. Now it changes to just basically a piece of paper with this dot in the middle, and this dot is the origin or the center of everything. So we're going to use that right now. So head up to create and choose rectangle, just hover over it. And then down in the menu here, we're going to create a center rectangle. There's other ways to make rectangles, and you can read about them with the balloons that pop out, but we're going to create center rectangle. Pick the center here, and just once click it, drag out. Don't click again yet. If you've clicked again, like I'm just about to do to show you, what will happen is that you don't have a size selected yet. So if you want to, you can back out of anything in Fusion and several other programs by hitting Control Z. That's like a quick undo instead of running up here to the undo button. So I'm just going to Control Z until my rectangle's gone. Then I'm going to head back in here, find rectangle, center rectangle, and try again. And pull. Okay, so now I get to choose my dimensions. My board, from my design, remember we have 168 cubic inches to work with, so we got to do some math. I pulled up a calculator, And I think I went 12, shift, there we go, so times 14. And 12 by 14 hits the maximum. I can make it different. I can make it longer and narrower, but I want to make sure when I multiply the length times the width, I'm going to hit that 168 number or less. So 12 by 14 is what I'm going to work with. So we're going to minimize my calculator, and I'm going to put those dimensions in here. I tab between these two dimension boxes, and I go 12 in one and 14 in the other, and hit enter. And now it seems like it's too big, and it is, so I'm going to scroll, control and scroll. Ooh, there we go. So on my mouse wheel, I am scrolling, and I'm holding control while I do that so that I get this scrolling feature. There's a few things you want to know in Fusion, and one is that, how to zoom really easily. So what you do is you, again, hold control and you scroll. And then the other one is hold down the mouse scroll wheel and push it around, and now you're panning. Okay, so that's called panning. So I do this all the time. I'm zooming in and out and I'm panning. Now, these dimensions, they're not quite right, because this would be my entire board, and I just want to make my first individual board that's going to be glued up into my cutting board later. So I need to change one. So I'm going to leave the 14-inch length, and I'm going to change the width of the board by double-clicking on the dimension. And as soon as I do that, I can edit it. I'm going to make this board 2 inches wide. So now I have a 2-inch wide board for board A that's 14 inches long. Now it's time to extrude it into a 3D body. So I'm going to click the center, make it blue. I'm going to hit E on my keyboard, and I'm in extrude mode here. And it's not very satisfying to look at it from this angle, so I'm going to orbit this. Now, orbiting is the next thing. We already had panning, we already had zooming. We need to be able to orbit. So what you do is you hold Shift on your keyboard while holding your middle mouse scroll wheel down, and then you move. And you can see I can orbit this around. I get a little mouse indicator there. It looks like an orbit. And when I do that, suddenly I can see this arrow, and I can start dragging this arrow. The reason I couldn't see the arrow before is when I looked down from above the top view, I'm looking straight at the arrow. So I'll take this back down to 0 for it was like this. There's the arrow, but I can't see that it's an arrow. So if I orbit, then I can start pulling it up. Now the question is, how thick is the cutting board going to be? Well, we're going to do the finished thickness, and according to our design constraints, the finished thickness needs to be 0.75 inches. So I'm just going to put 0.75 or 3/4. It'll take that too. So we'll backspace that. We'll go 3/4, 3/4 of an inch. Enter. There we go. There's our first board. It is 2 inches wide, 14 inches long, and 3/4 of an inch. And over here we have the components shown. And down here, this is the timeline. It's showing me step by step, going from the beginning forward in time, my creation. I made a sketch, that's this symbol, and then I made an extrusion, that's that symbol, and that's all we've done so far, and that's all we need to do so far. In the next tutorial, we're going to make more boards and maybe stick some boards together. So we'll see you then.